Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to the Tails block. You thought it was Sonic, but it is me, Dio. Anyways, my name is Amber Cypher, I will be your commentator for the next 3 runs. You might remember me from the previous Frame Fatale's Sonic block, except this is the Tails block. I'm joined by the wonderful runner Flying Fox. And,
Sorry.
But, yes, she's going to be doing these wonderfully, these wonderfully fast runs as not Sonic, but Tails for the next 3 games. So, this is going to be Sonic CD 2011, and we'll talk a little bit more about this release when we get into the run, so whenever you're ready, Flying Fox.
Okay, do you want to count me in?
Absolutely. So I'll count down from 3.
Okay.
Alright, so 3, 2, 1, go. So, this is Sonic CD 2011. This game came out in, as you might imagine, 2011. The game is available on Android, iOS, Xbox 360, PS3, and Steam. We are playing on the Steam version specifically in this case. And there's a few differences between this and the 1993 release that came out on Windows PC, Sega CD, and GameCube. First of all, you can play as Tails. That's a big deal. But you can only play as Tails after you've unlocked him via beating the game as Sonic. And unlike Sonic, Tails can't super peel out, but he can fly and swim. You can spin dash, and you can toggle the settings in this release to remove the speed cap, so that the camera doesn't lock in a weird way and it doesn't function like it did in 1993. In fact, it functions much better. So we did miss this bounce off of these speed shoes, but that means we don't quite have the speed that we want here. But normally what we'd want to do is we'd want to bounce off of that speed shoe monitor. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing what removing the speed cap can do for you. Thankfully, we made it just to the end of the level. Normally, we'd actually be able to just land right at the signpost, and that would be ideal, but it is what it is.
Yeah, not sure what happened there because I used a specific mountain in the background to determine where the speed shoes are, and I was in the right position, but for some reason Tails didn't bounce off it.
Oh, it is important to note that there are no level reps in this version of the game. They have all been fixed in one way or another. So unlike the very, very broken runs that the original classic versions of these games can provide, we have a mostly glitchless, execution-heavy run ahead of us. So that was a boss. And that was a 3-hit boss that we've used iframes to be able, what we call invincibility frames. Taking damage, you have some amount of time where you can't take damage again. We abuse that to be able to beat the boss quickly. So we're going to enter Collision Chaos 1 here, and if you didn't like this stage growing up, that's fine because we're playing as Tails, so we can cheese it with Flight, especially with Speed Shoes. What you're seeing here, you just saw a pause buffer off of a slope jump, and we're using slope jumps while we're going really, really fast to abuse our speed in the air. And thankfully, this is once again because we've removed the air cap, or the speed cap. So we're able to just fly over the whole level and beat it in like a swift 23 seconds or less, or your money back.
Yeah, the pulse buffering is to make that IL strat a lot easier.
Yeah. That's something that, without pause buffering, would be an IL only sort of thing. IL being individual levels. So, meanwhile, in Collision Chaos 2, we're going to fly over the top of the ceiling, because it's not blocked off, and spin dash off with an 8-tap spin dash to hit the speed shoes. Or not hit the speed shoes, to hit the monitor and bounce off, and then hit the speed shoes, and then fly over the rest of the level. Because Tails just does not care. This was also right before Christian Whitehead, who you may recognize that name for being responsible for Sonic Mania. It was before he realized that he should probably block off Tails' flight. So we caught them early. However, we do have an instance in the next act in Collision Chaos 3 where we can't go over the top, and even if we wanted to, there is a boss fight that we have to do. So the ceiling is blocked off by normal means, and we're going to briefly play Sonic Spinball here. It wasn't in the schedule. This is a bonus run right here that's happening. So Sonic Spinball should last until about now or so, and that's a boss fight. And that's Collision Chaos in a nutshell.
Yeah, the bombs that Robotnik throws are RNG. They can be thrown in any direction, and it's really annoying.
Yeah, it makes the spinball portion of that boss the most aggravating part, because yay, RNG! We love those in speedruns. Here in Untitled Tempest 1, we also have an instance of where the ceiling is blocked off by normal means. We can't reach the height necessary to get to the top, but by slope jumping off and bouncing off the enemy, we do reach the momentum and height necessary to do that. Untitled Tempest is also where I stop playing CD usually, to be perfectly honest with you. But Tails definitely trivializes this zone thanks to his flight ability. And we thankfully did not get hit by the nasty, the
Nope slope.
nasty slope. Yeah, the nope slope, the subpixels and everything.
Greatly named.
Also, for those of you who might be used to my voice sounding a lot less British, I apologize. I do pick up accents, and we just did like 3 hours worth of practice commentary, so yay, the theater kid in me coming out. But here in Untitled Tempest 2, we have our first instance of time travel, which is actually useful in this run for a number of reasons. The first one's not really because it's a marathon. We do run this game in IGT, or in-game time, and the time travel actually stops the in-game timer for a brief moment or two, but it also changes the layout of these levels. So, for example, in this case, it lowers the water level, which is fantastic, because the water otherwise slows us down quite a bit, and it also removes a lot of aggravating platforms. But we then have to change the layout back to what it was here at the end by traveling to the present via the future, to avoid the crusher here at the end that normally just gets in your way, or at worst takes a life off of you, and that costs far more time. So, well, moving into Untitled Tempest 3, I really hope you like cheese, and if you are a cheese fanatic, maybe you like stinky cheese, because we're about to have a huge chunk of stinky cheese with Tails in this boss. So normally what you have to do is he creates like a shield around him of a bunch of air bubbles that you have to collect, or like, you know, pop or consume, whatever. And his HP by himself is 1. So he just pads the boss fight. Tails doesn't care. Why? Because Tails can swim. So we're gonna use our flight ability to just kind of end up in Eggman's hitbox to beat him before he can even start his real boss fight cycle. And just like that, we're out of Untitled Tempest. Suddenly, this game seems a lot more tolerable. For those of you who don't know, I actually am not a huge fan of the level design in this game casually, but it is an absolutely fantastic speed game. I do recommend it, especially if you're doing the Tails route. This version is execution heavy, and I'm a fan of glitchless speedruns, so I quite like that. And you actually, I missed explaining it, as is classic Sonic commentary, but this stage in Quartz Quadrant 1 is actually our first instance of stopping the time traveling from happening. So the way time travel works in this game, and you'll see it in Quartz Quadrant 2 as well, when you pass one of the past or future signs, what happens is you start getting enveloped in like these giant sparkly lights. And if you, the whole goal of traveling through time, the whole point of it, is that you're maintaining momentum enough to be able to activate the time travel. We actually don't want to do that because we don't want to change the layouts, because these layouts in the present are ideal. or in certain cases, we lose our speed shoes if we transition in time travel, and we don't want to do that either. So you'll see us suddenly stop or like skid to a halt to be able to get rid of those sparkles that surround Tails. So moving into Quartz Quadrant 3, I encourage all of you to get up out of your chairs. Some of you might have been watching for a while. Get up out of your chairs, but don't stop watching. Tails is going to be our new fitness instructor. So when we get into this boss fight, it's actually a very humorous design. The idea is that Eggman is dropping like these bombs onto a treadmill, causing Sonic and Tails just kind of run in place with these spikes on the far left end. But what he doesn't realize is that the friction from this treadmill is actually melting away the metal platform that he's in. So I definitely encourage. Actually, Tails is getting a Tails workout here. If this was Sonic, he'd be running off those chili dogs. But again, this is the Tails block, so he's hovering off those chili dogs? I don't know. You'll get the point. So, Eggman's doing his little "this is really, really hot" dance.
It's getting too hot for him.
Yep, it's getting way too hot for him. This run is way too hot. And we're gonna wish that we could use the heat we just generated to melt the next zone out of existence, because...
Oh, please do.
Wacky workbench. Nobody likes it.
Why do you exist?
So this is one of those stages where I realized that the level design in this game is very, very vertical, which was kind of interesting. But at the same time, it felt very claustrophobic and kind of like the antithesis to the speed that the lateral speed that the Sonic series had become known for. So we're trying to make sure we don't get caught on platforms and we're able to just progress as quickly as possible. But Flying Fox is actually the world record holder of this category, of this version of the game, and it definitely shows in most cases, unless Wacky Workbench wants to be Wacky Workbench. And thankfully, a sub 1 minute time. Was that a sub 1 minute time? Did I miss it?
It was a 34.
Oh, even better. 34, best time. So, here in Wacky Workbench 2, is the actual instance where we collect speed shoes, and we're gonna start time travel, but we don't want to actually finish it, but it looks like you actually missed the post. Oh no, there it is. You missed a post, not the one I was thinking of. And we want to make sure we don't travel through time, or else, lest we lose our speed shoes.
Oh boy, the next act.
So
I'm gonna concentrate here.
Yes, this is serious time for Flying Fox, not so serious time for me. What we're gonna do here, there's actually a cycle skip that's rather hard to do in this boss fight. It's called the Rock Cycle Skip. And if done correctly, it does save 20 seconds. What we need to do is we need to make sure we hit this boss, and we're gonna use the timer, the centi-seconds on the timer, to be able to figure out where the platforms are going to spawn and line up Tails correctly. This is an instance of a failed cycle skip, but hopefully we can get the next 2 cycles and be able to show the difference. Oh!
No, this is the I can explain here. See, your flight has to be perfect, otherwise if you fly too high, you can... Oh my god. What?
What?
My control locked! I couldn't move Tails!
Yeah, it looked like he just sort of, like, used whatever momentum he had going at the time. I knew what was happening, but I couldn't stop it. That's okay, it just means it's another opportunity to actually show the,
yeah, but fast flight is really hard to do in here.
It is. Like, this is definitely a difficult skip to do. I'm gonna be quiet.
See, yeah, this is the problem. See, Fast Flight was too high. You need it to be perfect, and this is why it's so hard to do this trick.
Yes, because Tails' descent actually takes quite a while, which is why we want to make sure that the flight is absolutely perfect. If the platform spawns on top of you like that, you'll take damage. If you don't fly at the right time and you
I
are
just
too
realized
high,
something.
What did you realize?
I kind of use audio to help me with this, and of course I can't hear the game very well because of audio split.
That
I
would
didn't
be...
think of that. Oh, I didn't think of that.
The cues aren't just visual. It's actually really interesting to be doing like a marathon setting run for any game, really. You get used to the game audio a lot more than you realize. But now we're going to move into Stardust Speedway, which my only note here is that we stopped time travel, and in theory I would say we stopped time travel to save the world, but that's not really what's happening. We can't save the world if we don't get all good futures or, you know, all time stones. That's not what this is. We're just beating the game. So we're going to save something. We're going to save some time, actually. But this is also one of the stages that... This is actually one of the stages that made it into Sonic Mania, and I actually really quite enjoy it. For those of you who don't know, there are these mystical stones called Time Stones in the game. They replace the Chaos Emeralds, and you can do special stages in this game. You enter them a lot like you would in Sonic 1, where you reach the end of Acts 1 or 2 with 50 rings, jump into the giant ring that spawns, and you enter a special stage. Collect all 7 time stones, and you create a good future for the game. Otherwise, the other way you can actually get the good future for the game, or the good ending of the game, is by utilizing time travel, and that's a whole other thing. But now we're moving into Stardust Speedway 3. This is not quite a boss fight, it's more of a race with Metal Sonic. And Metal Sonic in the 1993 release, he has rubber banding AI. In the 2011 version, he doesn't, so he's a lot less of a nuisance in this race. What we care about is making sure that Robotnik doesn't catch up to us, because I believe that laser is a one-hit kill, regardless of the number of rings you have. Do correct me if I'm wrong there.
I think it is, yeah.
Okay. And I am talking about destroying generators that I believe Robotnik places in the past.
Yep. Yeah, I don't want him to do his... There we go.
And for anyone who's wondering again about the accent change, it's so hard for me to like skip, or not skip, but like not do. Alright, and that is Stardust Speedway 3. Now we're moving into the last zone of the game, called Metallic Madness, and it's also the other zone from CD that made it into Mania. So I often just call this Zone That Was Better in Mania Act 1. But this is another instance of stopping time travel that you'll be seeing here coming up. And the other reason we don't want to time travel into the past is not just to keep the speed shoes that we're going to be picking up soon, right here. It's also to make sure that we don't change the level layout. The level layout in the present is actually far more ideal. There's all these platforms that do get in the way and block off the shortcut at the end, so we can go all the way over if we do end up in the past for some reason or another. Because we're Tails, we can fly over, but if we're Sonic, it's not quite that simple. But like I said, this is the Tails block, not the Sonic block. So here in Metallic Madness 2, this is sealing the act. This is actually going to be our first demonstration of being able to fly across the ceiling. And, well, not on top of a ceiling, but rather if you're flying up against the ceiling, Tails' lateral speed is actually higher than it would be normally. And that would be... that is actually the ideal flying speed for Tails. And we just kind of go all the way over to the post. You can't do this in the 1993 version because that post doesn't trigger and you just kind of get stuck up there. So, whoops. But thankfully that has been fixed. Flying Fox has been running this game on and off since it came out in 2011 and currently holds the world record for the Tails category of the game. So it's definitely been quite a while. And this is the Firefly robot room right before the final boss, and this final boss is actually a little bit harder to do for Tails, because we're going to do a strat that we call double hit. And this is more difficult for Tails than it is for Sonic, because for some reason his jump height is very slightly lower than Sonic's. So you're going to see a pause buffer, and that actually allows to make the second hit a lot more consistent. Otherwise you lose about 8 seconds if you do miss that second hit. So,
Time is coming up.
Time is on final hit in this game, so time is definitely coming up.
And time.
Whoa. Okay. There we go. 2053.
Sorry, what was that again? 20?
It's 2053.
Oh.
The music is different between the Japanese and US soundtracks, that is correct. But GG's Flying Fox.
Thank you.
Like, aside from the rock cycle skip, like, that was definitely a rather solid marathon run. So, it looks like we're gonna start setting up the next game. So don't go away. We're going to be switching over to Sonic 1 2013 in just a moment.